One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Some of her worst moments as vice president were in some of these unscripted interview moments. By not doing interviews, she has raised the stakes for every unscripted moment that she has.
She's got to show people she's more presidential than prosecutorial.
She's got to think about this as a job interview. She's got the class clown sitting next to her doing raspberries, throwing spitballs.
She's a very good debater, but she hasn't debated anybody in 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes. So
she'll be fine.
You think so?
I think so.
Tomorrow night is a huge opportunity and carries a lot of risk for Vice President Harris.
She needs to outline her vision for this country, which is a joyful one. These are going to be difficult things for her to do because she has a menace on the other side.
If she can handle Donald Trump tonight, she can handle Vladimir Putin and any other dictator or wannabe dictator that's out there.
And every time people do get a look at her, they don't like her. When they saw her in 2019, they didn't like her. Whenever they saw her as VP, they didn't like her. Her numbers nosedived after they saw her at the convention. So 90 minutes of Kamala is not good for Kamala. And Trump just has to keep her on the defensive and explain why she believes these radical, dangerous things. Now, if she just pivots and says it's about values and then attacks him, that's what she wants to do. She wants to be attack, attack, attack the whole time. Because what does she have to lose? Remember, they didn't like what Biden did last time, not just because he fell apart, because he didn't land any great shots at Donald Trump. If she comes out and just goes crazy and just starts going rapist, Jan 6, this and that, and Trump gets flustered or Trump is then on the defensive, then she wins.
Kamala Harris is being accused of plagiarizing from her own boss. But wait, Joe Biden did that back in the day when he was running for Congress and Senate. And now she's caught that? Steal your boss's words. President Joe Biden. Well, he doesn't talk that much anyway. What is she stealing?
Nothing says her vision like copy and paste from the boss, does it? Right? I mean, come on. Yes. What were they thinking? And now they're busted because of it. Listen, I think, in my view of tonight, and I said it at the outset, it's Trump's job to hold her feet to the fire when it comes to these policies. And he can do that very well by saying 3.5 years.
Yeah.
3.5 years. 3.5 years.
Yeah.
You just keep doing it. Like, what did you do during that time? And she's trying to get that separation from Biden. I don't know how you can do it. I mean, Michael Tyler said this is her vision. Well, how different is her vision from his when you're cutting and pasting for the website?
It's a great. Tonight, Kamala Harris releasing details of her policy positions for the first time on her campaign website. A K-file investigation has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-file found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers, and I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants.
She
actually said she supported that.
She wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this. Oh. And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then the end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, you know, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants, and yet this, as you say, written and verbally. You know, what else, you know, did you find?
Well, let's take a look at her answer here on drugs. She got asked about the question from the ACLU was, since drug use is better addressed as a public health issue through treatment and other programming, will you support the decriminalization at the federal level of all drug possession for personal use? And Harris answers yes. Now, what would that mean? Well, it mean the federal all drug possession. That's not just marijuana, which she alluded to in her answer to this question, but it also would mean
it's federal level of all drug possession,
fentanyl, crack,
use.
Cocaine, things like that. Yeah.
Have they responded to you on her changes on these issues?
So we did put this question to the Harris campaign about the entire ACLU questionnaire, and the Harris campaign didn't answer any questions from CNN. Instead, they just provided a statement from an unnamed Harris campaign advisor that just said, the vice president's positions have been shaped by 3 years of effective governance as part of the Biden-Harris administration. Now, they declined to CNN to elaborate on what those positions were, and then they also provided this statement, which they attributed to a spokesperson saying, as president, she will take that same pragmatic approach, focusing on common sense solutions for the sake of progress. So where does she stand on this, all this questionnaire today? We don't know, and they won't say.
It's pretty incredible stuff, and thank you very much, Andrew. K-File for this reporting.
We don't know, and they won't say. That's how CNN closed it after that bombshell report last night that she wants to fund surgeries for newcomers so that they can become transformers and have the federal government, meaning you and me, pay for it. This debate should not even be a contest. The media is going to make it a contest. They'll probably even say, oh, she won afterwards, regardless of how she performs. Looking at the news all day today, all I could hear were people on different channels talking about how she's got to hit him, she's got to come after him, call him a rapist, homophobic, xenophobic, and 34-time criminal, which has nothing to do how you're going to govern. She has to fight like she's on complete defense because she can't go and talk about her policies. When CNN is talking about her policies that way, you know her policies are crap. Absolute crap. So a couple of things happened today, and it made me really concerned that Trump is walking into, some kind of a trap per se, because with everything she's come out of her mouth, like I said, this shouldn't even be a contest. But then I see this today. The host of tonight's presidential debate is a member of the Biden-Harris administration. This is the first time in history this has happened. And this woman is Dana Walden. And Dana Walden is basically the head of ABC News and just happens to be Kamala Harris's best friend. Trump agreed. He went into the lion's den and said, I'll take this on. I'll go for it. But it's got to be kind of scary. I think you guys all realize, and ever since he agreed, all they have done is try to fight to change the rules. This one, as recent as a couple of hours ago, reports emerged that the Harris team begged Trump prior to the debate at least 5 or 6 times in one phone call to turn the microphones on. That's because she wants to have that I'm speaking moment. It's not about putting forth her policies. It's about she needs a viral moment. She's going to get one. I'm pretty sure she's going to get something because she's practiced for a week as to when to shoot it. When to put out that viral thing. She'll put it out there. Be prepared for it. Again, he agreed to it. I trust Trump, so let's see what happens. Then ABC pulled a fast one. They agreed. Trump said no boxes, no lifts. You are what you are. I'm sorry, you're 5'4", I'm 6'3", I'm going to look like a big guy. That's the way it is. So what did ABC do? They made her a smaller child-sized podium. They made her the smaller podium so that she could look, bigger, side by side. The rules said no lift, but the rules didn't say we couldn't shrink the podium. Come on, man. He's walking into an absolute trap out there. But he's got one big thing on his side. Last night, his debate prep yesterday consisted of gathering with thousands of Christians for prayer in preparation for the debate tonight. This is the best preparation imaginable. America needs God, and real Donald Trump knows it. You can do all the Hollywood strategies and techniques. You can have Steven Spielberg. You can have every debate coach you possibly can. I have God on my side. I love that Trump did that. Didn't tell anybody. Wasn't on any news. And he went and prayed with a couple thousand people. Absolutely amazing. Amazing. What else did she do? Well, you heard about that from Harris Faulkner. She went and stole Joe Biden's website and just cut and pasted it and created her own website. This is not a serious candidate. This woman is not even supposed to be on the stage with this guy. She can't hold Donald Trump's jockstrap. They're doing everything possible, making this woman the Manchurian candidate, and there's nothing that they won't try. You'll see it tonight. They're going to give her every advantage. I don't have any proof, but I'm going to tell you, I feel like they gave her the questions. I really do. This tweet, everyone has to be prepared for the fact that the media is going to crown Kamala the winner of tonight's debate no matter what. She could pound a bottle of wine and barbecue a cat on stage, and they'll say she connects with the common people of this country. Get ready for the spin. Get ready for it. Absolutely get ready for it. So, big night. Hope everything goes all right. Knock on wood. Pray to the Lord. All the settings work. Everything's fine. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know you have many, many, many options in watching this debate tonight, and I thank you for spending the time with me. The moderators are ready. Ashley and SV and Cindy and Tommy are probably all in there, gonna do their best to keep the trolls at a minimum. One quick announcement: we did contact the winner of the trip to South Florida, and that is going to be Stacy and Rebecca from Winchester, Tennessee. Stacy and Rebecca will be coming down here, spending 3 days and 2 nights in South Florida, and going to have dinner with Robin and I. So that's absolutely going to be a lot of fun. Thank all, I think nearly 2,000 of you that did enter, and a bunch of people that tried to enter, but the thing wouldn't work. I'm going to change that. We'll have a different opt-in page so you guys can all get in there. But thank you, Vic. Thank you for entering. You're not going to get spam. Not going to be sending out a whole bunch of emails saying, "Hey, you want to do this? You want to do this? Go watch my video." No, that's not. This was for a contest. The only thing I'll send out to you is when we're doing another giveaway, or when we open our store next week, to let you know that we're going to be having a store with all kinds of Trump-themed merchandise. In about 2 minutes, I'm going to bring on Kevin McDermott from Lear Capital. Given where we are with this thing and how this election is moving, you guys know that I've been working a lot with Lear Capital. I'm going to take a couple minutes, take some questions. You guys had sent me some questions, and I want to see if we can't get some answers from Kevin. And if you guys have any questions live, we've got 30 minutes before the debate starts. We have 45 minutes. So we're going to dig into this, and we're going to take your questions in addition to the ones I have prepared. And let's see if you guys can figure out what you need to do to participate so that you're not caught off guard if somehow they cheat and install Kamala Harris as president. You know what happened in 2020. I don't want to see people get flat-footed. She's talking crazy, absolutely crazy. You want to give transformer surgery to newcomers and have the federal government pay for it. You want to give away a $25,000 bonus to newcomers so they can buy houses. You want to put a price cap on food because you're worried about gouging. You're not talking about anything that is really going to help Americans. You want to put a 40%, 28, 30% tax on capital gains and on unrealized capital gains. So I'm going to let Kevin explain to you some of this stuff that could be problematic and how all of you could basically participate with, Lear Capital and hedging your money and making sure you don't lose a lot. Kevin, let me make sure you're here. Kevin, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There you are. There you are. This is Kevin McDermott, the founder of Lear Capital. So if you got some questions on gold and what's going on in this market, because now is the time to start looking at these things. If you wait till November, it's going to be too late. I mean, not November. If you wait till after the election and say before the inauguration, it could be too late. So start planning now. My wife is a huge prepper. She does all kinds of, our garage is packed with prepper food. I'm not waiting. I know either way, if she wins, things are going to go crazy. If she loses, it's probably going to get crazier. We can see what's going on out in Springfield, Ohio. We see what's going on in Aurora, Colorado. We can see what's going on in Chicago with these newcomers just doing all crazy stuff. I never thought I'd wake up in America and see the things that are happening right now. But they're happening. And I think you guys need to know that. So, Kevin, thanks for coming in tonight, and let's see if we can't figure out how this is going to work. So, I read an article on Zero Hedge, and in the article, it mentioned that a Kamala Harris presidency could drive the gold price to $10,000 an ounce. That may have been a bit of hyperbole, but from what you're seeing, how would Kamala getting elected affect gold pricing?
Well, I think it's going to be a huge positive for the gold price because everything that you brought up is inflationary. So if you think about subsidizing, purchasing homes for $25,000, really all you're going to do is drive the home prices up an extra $25,000 inflation. She doesn't understand the definition of inflation. Definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. So if you're trying to contain inflation, you definitely don't want to start printing up even more money. So that incredibly stupid idea. You brought up the unrealized capital gains tax. Okay, so if that is going to work, let me give you the exact opposite, which is if I have an unrealized loss, does the IRS pay me? Probably not. So that's just incredibly stupid. You make an investment in the United States with a company and hope that you can hold it for 3 to 5 years, let it get its legs up and going. But the minute you have $1 of profit, they're going to start taxing it. Because that's where it would go, right? It's going to be for X amount of millionaires, and it's just going to trickle right on down, just like it always does. Another incredibly stupid idea. The price controls at the groceries has to be the absolute dumbest idea I've ever heard in my entire life, because if she asked one economist that wasn't biased, he would tell you right away. That's the first thing we learn in economics. You cannot control prices. We tried it in the 70s. It absolutely did not work. The minute they raised the price controls, inflation skyrocketed up another 6 or 7%. All around the world, it's never worked. And then who does she want to go after for the price controls? It's grocery stores and grocers. They have the smallest margins of anybody in any industry. It's 1.5–2% margins for the grocery industry, so you're not going to control prices there. Go ask a farmer how much money they make. Their margins are fairly small. So if you want to start somewhere, do not start with groceries because you're just going to make the food supply less and less, because they just won't be able to make a profit and continue to supply our tables with food. So
let me stop you for a second. I'm going to bring you back because you're talking really high level economy stuff here. Explain what margin is. So I'm a grocery store, and you said they have really low margins. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so a margin is your profit margin, is what I should have said. So if you purchase something at $9 and you sell it at $10, your margin's basically around 10%, right? They survive on 2% margins. On average, grocery stores survive on 2–2.5% margin. Very small. Any little mistake could put grocery stores out of business. It's a high volume, very low profit margin business. So if you implement price controls and they can't go up with the cost of their goods, if the farmers are charging them a little bit more money because they have to charge money to stay in business, and the grocery stores can't charge anything more, at some point they go out of business because their profit margin is too small. If it was 20%, okay, fine. We can move it up a little bit and control the prices. But you can't do that on a grocery store with very small profit margins.
And on the other side of the coin, she should already know that, because she's seeing so many businesses leave the inner cities because that same profit margin, they can't stay in business because of the theft. So if they're losing money because people are stealing their goods, and you on the other side are going to tax them at the same time, there's no way these people can stay in business and make any profit. So it's absolutely nuts that she's trying that. So let me ask you this. A lot of people who think currency markets are hard to understand. Even I have a problem understanding them as well. What happens if the United States dollar is no longer the global reserve currency? And if you could explain what global reserve currency is.
Okay, so let's start with the global reserve currency. So the global reserve currency means that countries around the world need your currency to purchase things like oil and commodities and big ticket items. So at this particular point, we have the oil agreements with the OPEC countries that anybody who purchases oil needs to purchase it with the US dollar. So if you start back in the 1450s or so, we've had 6 world reserve currency, 6 different countries that had the world reserve currency status. I'll try to remember them. They're Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, France, Great Britain, and the United States. Okay, that's 6, right? Yes. So each one of those countries, Barry, had that world reserve currency status on average 100 years. The U.S. has been around right now with the world's reserve currency status about 107 years. So it's very powerful, because if everyone has to use my currency to purchase commodities, then my currency is in demand more than all the rest of them. So I know that I'm going to have a strong currency. So if you look at the money supply, actual U.S. currency, there is more U.S. currency outside the United States than inside the United States, because all countries have to have U.S. dollars in their central banks or in their economy to go purchase these commodities. So think of it this way. we've got this pile of money outside the United States, and we've got a pile of money inside the United States, and that pile of money outside the United States kind of stays outside the United States. So if my definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods, and we lose the world's reserve currency status, and all of that money that these countries needed to purchase these commodities is no longer needed, where does that money go? It all comes back to the United States, and that increases our money supply here in the United States dramatically, and inflation goes absolutely through the roof. So is it provable that that happens? Yes. Go read the history book. Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, France, and Great Britain had inflation when they lost the world's reserve currency status, and it just skyrocketed. There's nothing you can really do about it because you can't absorb that much money in a short period of time, so prices go absolutely through the roof. That's probably the scariest reason that you don't want to lose that world's reserve currency status. The other one is you can't run up those deficits. There's so much demand for US dollars that I can go issue money and somebody's going to grab it. Somebody's going to take it from outside the United States. They're going to borrow it and put it in a treasury because that's how you hold that currency. If I don't have that world's reserve status, we can't run the deficits that we've run. And we may have to pay back some of it because we can't run it. Then you got to pay back. The money.
Might have to pay back. I mean, there's some people saying that we may end up. I mean, I see Elon Musk saying it all the time. We're headed for bankruptcy, and if he's right, then it stands to reason why you would need to have some gold because the dollar is going to be basically worthless. Is that what he's saying too?
Well, basically what he's saying, he says the world's waking up to the fact that governments can print endless paper money, but you cannot print gold.
Right.
So, real estate, gold, things that have, value and are limited, if you put an increased demand on that fixed supply, what happens to price? And that's why we're seeing central banks around the world, they're selling off US dollars and purchasing gold. The gold price is now at record highs, and if I had to guess, would go much higher. You asked me a question, is it going to go to 10,000? In my personal opinion, no. And if it does, we've got a lot bigger problems. There's going to be no gold for anybody because everybody's going to want it. But I would say the gold price, based on the deficit and the money supply, which is what we look at to value the price of gold, should be in the $3,200 to $3,500 range. That's where it probably
ends. What's it at today?
Around $2,500.
Wow. All right. So you're talking about almost a 20% increase just because of some stuff. Now, it's like one of the things I looked is that I understand one of the biggest, in hearing what you're saying, one of the biggest drivers of the gold price is what the central banks ends up doing. But what does it mean now that the central bank is buying up tons and tons of gold? I mean, a lot of gold.
Well, there's always reasons that they do that. So they can hold U.S. currency, they can hold other people's currency, or they can hold something physical like gold. I mean, they don't really get into the, purchasing stocks and things like that. So they're either going to hold currencies in the form of treasury bills, or they're going to hold, physical metals, mostly gold. So if you look at the U.S. dollar, which would you have rather held since the year 2020? I'm sorry. We've lost 24% of the purchasing power of the dollar since 2020, and the price of gold has basically offset all of that. So these central banks say, look, what do I want to hold? Do I want to sit here and hold paper that's lost 24% of its value, and I hold billions of dollars worth of that, if not trillions of dollars, or I can hold precious metals, which has a much better shot of holding its value. And then if the U.S. loses its world reserve currency status, I can move that gold over to some other currency. But again, the other point I'd like to make is they're not day traders. These central banks, when they purchase gold, they hold it for 10, 15, 20 years at a time. So if you want to understand where the price of gold is going, understand who the most powerful bankers are, which is central banks. They have the most money. They can print money out of thin air. I wish I could go in my garage and print money and then go buy gold. That's what central banks can do. So what are they doing? That's exactly what they are doing. They're either liquidating US dollars and buying gold, or they're printing money and buying gold. Either way, they want the physical stuff as opposed to the paper stuff.
Wow. Now, a lot of people who watch my show are average Joes. And I want them to understand what may happen if Kamala Harris is elected. But, how can they protect themselves, and how can the average person invest in gold?
Well, I think if Kamala Harris is elected, you are going to get another round of inflation for sure. Everything she says is inflationary. Let's print out money. Let's print up the money for the subsidies. Everything's just print money. It's a blank check. We're just going to go out. I mean, the craziest one I think she really came up with, and this is the absolute nuttiest one, is we're gonna give free money away to startup businesses. Look, there's an entire industry called private equity that does that. And the reason you need smart people doing is because 9 out of 10 new businesses fail. Yeah. Okay, everybody can Google it. It's 9 out of 10 businesses. If I went to Vegas and I had a 90% chance of losing my money, Vegas wouldn't survive. At least I have a 49 or 48% chance of winning something. And so everybody's going, if you have a 90% chance of losing, you're not going to do it. No. But that's the dumb idea she comes up with. I'm going to limit these people that already have a platform to get money, but the U.S. government's going to be better at it. They're not. So if she wants to print money and not control the deficit and talk about the deficit and talk about the money printing, if she's not going to talk about that, then it's going to continue. We are printing up, Barry, $2.7 billion a day just to fund the interest on the debt. If she's not going to fix that, then Elon Musk is right. The U.S. is going to go bankrupt.
But how can she fix it? If you're talking about giving out $50,000, I don't even think she was talking loans. I think she's talking just giving away $50,000 to people. Yeah. So she doesn't even expect to be paid back. They're going to try and push again this student loan with billions and billions, and they still want to. If she gets in, she's going to ship a whole lot of money over to those countries I can't speak of. So it's inevitable that the inflation is going to continue and probably actually get worse. And it just doesn't seem like she cares, or the people who are pulling her puppet strings don't seem to care, which is the weirdest thing, is because these people are wealthy, and you just have to wonder where they're putting their money to make sure that, if she does there are a lot of rich Democrats, let's just call it, the Hollywood, the sports, they're conservative when they're not on stage or something, because they've got to be finding a way to hedge their money as well. And you probably know a lot of them buying gold, do you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, our business has skyrocketed in the last, month and a half. As soon as everybody thinks maybe Kamala has a shot, they're scared to death. I think even the Democrats are calling, behind the scenes. They might not admit it, but a lot of business going on. But you're right. Look, there's only a couple of ways to pay back the U.S. deficit or to shrink it. One is to pay it back. That's probably impossible. Default on it, they don't want to do that. Or you inflate it away. Well, based on what she's talking about, that's what she's looking to do. Let me just print a bunch of money and we'll pay it back with cheaper dollars in the future. Look, Elon Musk, he said he had a plan, and Warren Buffett said he had a plan. He could start paying down the deficit if somebody gave him 10 minutes to explain it. Look, you have one of the most successful investors on the planet, and he's saying, give me 10 minutes and I can tell you how to do this. But it doesn't get votes, Barry.
No.
If you don't spend money and give money to the people who need the money, then you're not going to get their vote. And that's exactly what she's doing.
Thomas Massey, I don't know if you've seen it, but you should look at it on Twitter/X. Thomas Massey put out a great video today, and he's talking about this continuing resolution. The government runs out of money again in, I think, the end of the month. And they're saying they're going to attach the SAVE Act to it, because in that regard, then the newcomers can't vote. And he's like, it's a shell game. We're going to play this game, but in the end, we're all going to cave. They're going to get what they want, and we're not going to get any further. If the government shuts down, if they do stick to their guns, number one, two questions. Do you advise, or would you think shutting the government down would be a good idea? And if it does shut down, then what happens?
Well, if they shut the government down and the politicians don't get paid until they get it going again, it's a great idea, because, then they're in the problem, right? But if they get paid, they'll just sit there and, try to figure out how to blame everybody else. They'll just be finger pointing all the time, right? Yeah. It's like the phone company, they just point fingers at everybody else. No, it's their fault, and they're the best at it out of anybody. Every time something happens, it's the Democrats' fault, it's the Republicans' fault, it's this, it's that. everybody just needs to get behind the fact that we need to work on this deficit or we're not going to have a country. Our kids are not going to be able to, they'll 50, 60% of their paycheck. Look, tax rates used to be 70% 30, 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's where they're going again if we can't resolve this issue.
I can't even imagine. So let me ask you a question. How can the election, or how will this election, either way, affect the silver market? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't in a position to purchase gold at $2,500 or $3,000 an ounce. So, silver might be a more viable alternative for those looking to protect themselves with a smaller investment. So what would you advise for that for people who don't have $2,500 an ounce, or can you buy gold in a smaller, increment to make it happen?
Yeah, those are great questions. Yes, you can. You can buy gold in smaller increments. You can buy gold in 1/10 of an ounce, so you can get all the way down to $250, $275.
Really? Okay.
If you wanted to own gold. But I'll tell you what, right now, 80% of my portfolio, my personal portfolio, 80% right now is in silver, because the last time gold traded over $2,000 an ounce, the silver price was $49 an ounce, and it's trading at $25 an ounce now. Mm-hmm. On top of that, we are running in silver a 200 million ounce deficit. So with solar panels and batteries and all of the industrial applications for silver, we're running that deficit. The deficit's estimated to go up to around 220 or 230 million ounces. And a lot of it's being used for the green energy, an enormous amount in solar. And I don't think green energy is going anywhere. We got to, that's another thing we have to get under control, which is this global warming situation. So solar is important. They're going to continue with it. And the silver deficit, I think, is going to get higher and higher. So over the next few years, silver should play a big catch up to the gold price. In my opinion.
So gold, you can get down to 1/10 of an ounce. Right now, you're talking about a $250 investment, and silver, I think you said it's 40, not 40. It used to be 40. Now it's 25 or so.
Yeah, it's 25. The high in the market, the last time gold was this high, it was 49. So almost twice what it is trading at today.
All right. Well, then, so there's really no impediment for people getting involved in both gold and silver. It's not like you're going to have to break the bank, spend all your money. You can get in, get some stuff hedged, and you can continue buying as you feel comfortable, correct? Am I right with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So now I got a question for you. And I've had a few people ask me this. Can you purchase gold and silver basically funded through an IRA or some other retirement account?
Yes. Yeah. So we're authorized to do that. So we can put physical gold into an IRA, 401k, 403b plan, 403b plan. Just depends on where you are. If it's a 401k and you're still at the company, you can't do much with that. But if it's just a plain old IRA, we can move any portion that someone would like over to a physical gold IRA. Very easy. Takes 10 minutes.
And what you just said, physical. So just so all of you guys watching, you're not getting a certificate. You're actually getting the gold. You're actually getting the silver, even if it's down to 1/10 of an ounce. What do you get? I think they sell stamps now or something. What do you get if you're getting a 1/10 of an ounce of gold?
Well, there's a 1/10 of an ounce American Eagle, so the coin will come in a 1/10 of an ounce, maple leaves, things like that. That's what I would recommend. They're highly liquid. And the other thing, Barry, that I want to have people understand is if the economy something dramatic happened, with a company we work with IRAs, you can actually take physical possession from your IRA. A lot of IRAs make you sell the precious metals, get the cash, and then you'd be back to buying physical metals. You can actually take physical delivery anytime you'd like. So I think that was a big benefit. One of the reasons we went with our custodian.
All right, so I got one more question, and even I would like to know this for myself. If things go absolutely haywire with this woman, if she were somehow to get into the office, how quickly and what can you do to actually liquidate your position in gold and or silver so you've got cash to do what you need to do, buy what if you got to move or whatever? How quickly can you sell these metals?
Okay, so gold and silver are the most liquid investment on the planet. not only could you go down to a bank or a brokerage house or call us and we'll lock in the price before we receive it. We'll send you out a Federal Express label. You're going to go down to Federal Express, put it in the box like we tell you to, overnight it to us. It's fully insured, and we can overnight a check or wire the money back to you. But if you left this country and you went over to a different country, gold is the same price anywhere in the country. It's not like a piece of real estate where you buy it and then you got to go find, somebody to purchase it, and it takes a month or so to go sell. This is an absolute immediate transaction. If you walk into a brokerage house, you don't have to wait 3 days. It's physical and it's highly liquid.
That's pretty much. Let me see if Ashley, do anybody have some questions here? People says, I'm trying to look at here. So pawn stores. So if you have gold, or you go into a pawn shop and buy gold, are you paying basically the same price? Are they giving you the same price based upon what, the ounce that you have? So if you had an ounce of gold and went into your local pawn shop, what are they giving you for that?
It's a great question. Look, pawn shops have to make money. That isn't their business. Their business is to buy anything that comes through the store. So they're going to charge you something, and it's going to be something probably larger than we would charge. So just to give everybody an idea, if you purchase from Lear Capital, if you purchase from us, and then you sell back, we have no commission on the sell back. When you purchase, there's a fee. When you sell back, we don't charge a single dime. So if you go into a pawn shop, he's going to call us after he takes that metal and ask us what the price is, and then he makes his spread on it. So give us a phone call. We'll give you a better price than typically pawn shop. So if you got a guitar, go to a pawn shop. If you have gold, call us.
Well, Kevin, thanks for taking the time before the debate here. I know you want to watch it as well. These people are getting ready for it. Thank you very much. Guys, on the bottom of the screen there, you can see 800-601-5430, or go to learberry.com. If you call these guys, you can ask Kevin to put you in touch with some people who actually know and deal with your personal situation and figure out what's best for you, whether it's an IRA, whether it's a tenth of an ounce, and get yourselves in a position to make sure you're protected. Kevin, thank you very, very much. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, you bet, Barry. Hey, yeah, I would say, hey, let's do something special for this debate, make everybody happy. If they call the number or go to the URL, we'll put $250 into their accounts to start. So if we'll pay for the shipping and insurance on their first order, or we'll pay their IRA fees with the money, but we'll put $250 in everybody's account. So, hey, look, let's go have a good debate, and we'll throw some money in there when everybody's account. Does
that account for second purchase as well? So if you already have an account,
if you don't have an account, then you can use it on the second account, and we roll over the money. So if you only use some portion of it for shipping, we leave it in the account. You can use it until it's gone.
All right. Somebody said here, can you explain what unrealized capital gains is? That's an easy one. It's gonna piss you off when he tells you this.
So let's say you purchased a stock today, and 2 years later, or you purchased stock 2 years ago, and today you're up 2 times the amount, but you did not liquidate the stock. Mm-hmm. You've got a gain in there. So you paid $100. It's worth $200 today. You have a $100 gain. What Kamala Harris wants to do is tax that $100 extra that you have not liquidated and made yet. The unrealized gain is the $100 that's still sitting in the stock that you would have to sell some portion to pay the tax on. So that's unrealized capital gains.
Yeah, and in your own situation, imagine owning a house that you've been in for 10 or 15 years. You bought that house for $80, and your position now, if you thought about selling, maybe you'd get $200,000 or $300,000. That's a big chunk of money there, equity that you're going to have to pay it with your taxes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I would say she probably stays away from actual people's homes, but anybody who owns an apartment building or anything else, yeah. I mean, all of that appreciation that's happened in that apartment building is unrealized capital gains. So where's the cutoff? There is no cutoff because she's going to start up here with wealthy people, and she's going to move herself all the way down to us. It's a great way for the government. But what has to happen to get that tax? They have to sell the asset. Mm-hmm. So you get the real estate market crashing, the stock market crashing, because everybody has to sell to pay the taxes. Another completely stupid idea.
I got a quick question, or actually two before we go. First one is, do you appraise old coins? Because this person says they have some gold and silver, and they want to know, do you guys appraise if you were going to purchase gold from them?
Yes, we appraise the coins and we do it free of charge.
Okay, and this is a real important question that only you can answer. Somebody asked, how solvent is Lear Capital?
Very. Yeah. I mean, we purchase back millions and millions of dollars every month when people liquidate. So we've been around for 27 years. We're extremely solvent.
Right.
And you have the gold. So the person who asked that question, just think about it. You have the gold. I ship the gold to you. You have it. It's in your possession. You can go sell it anywhere, if I'm in business or not.
All right, Kevin, we're about 15 minutes out. We're going to jump. Thank you for your time. You guys, again, go to learberry.com or give Kevin a call. Where's that number? Let me put it back up on the screen. 800-601-5430. Kevin, thank you very, very much for your time tonight. Go watch the debate.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
All right, bye-bye.
You bet. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. I know some people didn't want to. They felt like that was a commercial. No, it wasn't a commercial. It's only a commercial if you think it's a commercial. What we're about to see with this election, one way or the other, or either way, we're going to see some people going absolutely flipping crazy. If she wins, you're going to wish you had done something for your family, whether it's prepping, buying gold, doing something, getting ammo. It's going to get nuts. If Trump wins like we all hope and pray for, it may get nuttier. These people may just lose their crap and decide to, dump tens of thousands of newcomers in your neighborhood and make you have to deal with it. Don't take this stuff for granted. I'm telling you, it's not about selling you anything. It's not about looking at anything. It's about seriously making sure you're prepared. I wouldn't talk to you guys about anything that I'm not doing for my family as well. You guys see Ashley in here. I am working with her. My wife is basically, she knows more about gold than I do. And you don't have to be a millionaire. I know some of you are like, I can't even afford to eat. Well, if you can't afford to eat, then that's even more reason why you need to be looking at prepping and doing things of that nature. Just imagining one day waking up and there's no electricity. Not because the power company turned it off, but because something happened to the grid. What are you going to do? You have prep food in the garage. You have canned food. What are you going to do? One of the reasons why I feel so passionate about this, and I get pitched sponsors out the yin yang. So many different people. I'm like, nope, can't do it, because I don't believe in it. And I've told you in many videos, I think things are going to get squirrely. I think things are going to go off the rails. You're seeing what's happening in Aurora. Another apartment complex got taken over. They're not doing anything. I don't know why. People are like, how can this even be happening in America? How can apartment complexes be taken over by a bunch of yahoos from Venezuela? How are 20, 30,000 Haitians just wandering around Springfield doing what they want? It happened here in Fort Lauderdale. I wake up to the news that some guy stole a Hummer, decided he was going to drive it up the beach, not on A1A, in the sand, run over turtle hatchlings, and just go nuts. Luckily, he didn't hurt anybody, but he could have run some people over. It could have been really, really bad. Craig, what do you mean? Craig says, why can't I share? Not sure what you mean there. Not sure what you mean. How much is 1/10 of an ounce? Well, 1/10 of an ounce. I'm not sure what you mean. How much does it weigh? Well, I don't know the metric system, but I don't know your question. 1/10 of an ounce, that is the answer. Are you talking about how much does it cost? Right now it would be about $250. The owner was forced to sell because they can't collect their rent. Absolutely crazy. Just be careful. Whether you do gold, whether you do silver, whether you start putting stuff in the garage and getting it ready. Robin's already talking about getting another deep freezer out there so we can pack stuff in it. And luckily on our house, we've got solar panels. So we're having a guy come out and basically take that solar and attaching it so we have someplace to plug in both the generator and, stuff that we have to keep cold. I'm taking preparations on this. I advise you to take preparations because you don't know what's going to happen. Upside takes care of itself. If everything is fine and she doesn't do the things she's talking about doing, nothing to worry about. It's okay. You wasted your time. You didn't waste your money because it's still there. But the downside, I've lived through hurricanes. Those of you who are in here and talk about, what exactly is going on. I mean, what am I talking about? Maybe you've lived through a hurricane and you've seen power go out for 5 or 6 or 7 days. And you can't get gas, and you can't go to the grocery store, and hopefully you stocked up before it happened. When a hurricane comes, it's not like a tornado. We can track it. We can see it coming off the coast of Africa, and we see it coming across the Atlantic, and then they start doing the models, and they said, looks like it's going to hit South Florida. Well, you don't wait till it hits. It's out there in the Cape Verdes, and it's coming across, the Lesser Antilles and all that stuff, and you're like, honey, we need to go gas up the car, and we got to buy some stuff. So if you do it for a hurricane, why the hell aren't you doing it for an election? Doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't protect your family in that regard, because I know you do it for a hurricane, because I've seen people do it for storms here. And you buy packaged goods and stuff that you don't have to cook just in case. And you make sure. And then if it says Cat 2 or Cat 3, then you don't even stay here. Get in the car and get the hell out. Don't even stay. But in any event, you prepare. All right, that's all I'm going to say about it. You guys do what you want. I'm just trying to bring you information. I'm not trying to sell you anything because you're not really selling or buying anything. You're helping yourself. That's what I'm saying. All right, so now we've got this debate. We're roughly about 10 minutes away, and I can see what's going on television. It's getting crazy. People are starting to look at things. Wow, 8,100 likes. Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and play this.
Come on, show some love and click that like button.
We're about to get one in Mississippi. Yep. Saw that happening. The hurricane started brewing in the Gulf. And it's heading up, through, looks like it might have went to Texas, and now it's looking like it's heading right to Mississippi, New Orleans. What does New Orleans have? A spell on it? How it's just a magnet for these things coming up through the Gulf? But I can tell you that Zafia here, she's watching the weather very closely. And as that thing gets closer, and they're going to tell her whether it's a Cat 1, 2, 3, or 4, she's going to make some decisions. She's going to say, hey, my family, we need to get the hell out of here, or we're going to hunker down, but we need to make sure we're prepared. Let's go Dolphins. Let's go Trump. I am not going to put up Transformers for Trump. I ain't going to do it. Nope, ain't going to happen. I hear you, Barry. Stock up. Unfortunately, I was left to fend for myself and can't get anything to even do anything. Hope to figure this out soon. Brother, I do as well. Somebody said, do you put if Democrats want for me to believe they are right, then we both are wrong. Kimberly, yes, I love that. Country girl can survive. You know what? What's the song? Well, Country Girl Can't Survive, the Country Boy, that was Hank Williams. And a part in that song where he talks about, I can drop a line, whatever was a trot line. Down here, you really can't go hungry. Out in our backyard, we've got a mango tree and an avocado tree. I'm not really a fan of the avocados, but they're right there. You know what I mean? If God forbid something happened, I'm going to have to choke down some avocado. But I also know I'll have something to go with that avocado, because Robin, being a fisherwoman that she is, she's going to go out there and catch something. It ain't going to cost anything to go out there and catch some fish, bring that fish home, and that's what she wants to do anyway. Wink, wink. I don't know if she's watching, but she wants me to go ahead and have her go out on a boat and catch some fish, because that's what she really wants to do. The grandkids are coming down. She's probably going to want to take them fishing. Ashley, did you hear that? ABC is so heavy into the lies right now. Oh, it's just so bad, man. It's crazy. I get eggs every morning. Hi, Barry. I follow you on X. Thank you very much. I'm always over there. Goat Hammer says, I got 3 orange trees. Yeah, people down here people not from down here don't realize there are people with grapefruit trees and orange trees. There's nothing like saying, you know what, I want a snack. Let me go outside and grab a mango and put that in the freezer and let it get cold. I like mine cold. And then Robin, she'll chop them up or whatever. But you don't have to. You can just skin that back with a knife and eat yourself a mango and get a lot of nutrients. So three orange trees. Absolutely right. Fishing is fun and relaxing. Yep, very much so. Except if you're like me, unless the water is like glass, I'm not feeling too good. Once it starts doing all this stuff out there, you better put Barry back on the shore. I can't take that. Berry avocados are super good for you. Yeah, I just don't like. You know what's funny? Robin always says I'm a nut because I love California rolls. And what's in a California roll? A big old slice of avocado. And I love it. Absolutely love it. But if you put a slice of avocado in front of me, yeah, I don't like it. It's kind of mushy. So, I don't know, it's a mental thing. But you can bet your butt if Barry was hungry and didn't have any food because he couldn't get to the grocery store, yeah, I'd be eating some some avocado. Make some mango salsa. Go ahead and put that. Let it sit on the shelf. Good stuff there. I get them from the shore. Yeah, exactly. I'll trade some fish. You can fast for a long time if you want to. Who the hell wants to fast? I mean, I know I need to lose some weight, but are you trying to tell me something? Because I ain't fasting. If there's food available, let's go ahead and eat it. Hey, Tracy. Tracy says, hey, Barry, hope for a fair debate from the leftist ABC. I've always been a positive person. Way back when basically being involved in athletics, you always think you're going to win. But then you sometimes have to go to an away game. And at the away game, the refs might be working with this team and the crowd's going to be yelling against you. And most of the time, that would actually motivate me. I loved having an away game. I loved going and basically just trashing somebody in front of their fans. It was so energetic. But this is different. This is a away game without the benefit of being able to do that. There's nobody out there. Nobody. You're talking to a moderator who may not like you, and you're not getting any feedback from the crowd. When you hear people boo or something like that because they don't like what you did to their home team, that's exhilarating. It makes you feel good. But nobody's going to be out there. And Kamala, I don't care what she has to say. So Trump's going to have a huge task here is basically for 90 minutes, he's got to keep his momentum up. Breathe deep. In my estimation, what you need to do is not let her take advantage of you. I don't believe what these other people are saying. Oh, Trump needs to stay above the fray and not get down dirty. Hell no. You take a swing at me, I'm gonna swing at you harder. I saw a video by Steve Inman. Steve Inman makes the best videos. He finds them. I don't know where he finds them. But this woman was beating on this other woman, and a guy walked up and said, stop, and the woman swung at the guy. I never am an advocate for hitting a woman. But she took a shot at him. And so he just took a shot back. Tonight, Trump needs to be that guy. He needs to be the guy that like Corey Lewandowski says, let Trump be Trump. I will firmly believe that. Don't lay down. Nope, don't do it. You've lived your entire life as an alpha male. You're not going to change that for one 90-minute debate. You either take me as I am or don't take me at all. That's how I would think. You can't even, I don't even know if he can turn it off. This guy has made billions. He's done some of the most successful developments in New York. He's lost money, but the reason why he gets back up is because he doesn't let things get him down. Any athlete will tell you, yeah, I lost last week, but I'm still going to come at you this next week. I'm going to give you everything I got. You better be ready. I'm not going to lay down because you're an inferior opponent. If you're an inferior opponent, don't get on the field with me. Say your hamstring hurts and leave. Don't expect me to take it easy on you. So it makes me sick when people say, take it easy on her. Don't look this way or that way. Now, I'm not saying he needs to talk about her wig. I'm not saying he needs to talk about her sometimes being black or not being black. I'm talking about going after her policies, what she said, and what she's done. Because she's going to come after him with that. And he can't look weak. All right, it looks like we're ready. Let me get my headset in here. Let's go, people. It is game time.
There's a face-off in Philadelphia. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump about to take the debate stage at the National Constitution Center. It is a critical moment in this race for the White House. Just 2 months.
All right, so they're going to keep talking. So let's go. Watching with you from Hot Springs, Arkansas. $10 says ABC opens the mic to make Trump look bad. Might be. This woman won't go down easy. I know that was probably a pun there. A little play on words. Does Kamala head wear a wig? Oh, yeah. That ain't her hair. I don't know if you saw the other day where she was walking through the park with her husband and she had a baseball hat on like I do. All that hair wasn't under that baseball hat. So she's got some extension stuff going on. And here we go, people. God bless him.
Presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Like he didn't know who she was.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out. when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. "Thank you, President Xi," exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade last year.
Baby
You said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, "I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks." But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
Project 2025,
I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to, because, again, 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it, because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. they can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America
didn't answer the question.
Is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women, who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question. Would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice President Harris,
the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. understand this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris.
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do...
That's not me.
This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. if she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing so important, in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say?
Don't say it.
There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course
Why are they not
for the future
fact-checking her?
and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
All right, so they've gone through, it seems, an hour thus far. So we got another half hour of this charade at this point where she obviously was told, just keep lying. I know a lot of people are pissed off right now and people are thinking to themselves, this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good to the nuts. The nuts are like, oh, she's got him. But I gotta believe, unless I'm wrong, that people who actually have functioning frontal lobes have heard her lie after lie after lie. They never fact-checked her. Project 2025, just she spews it. Every single hoax. Charlottesville, they didn't refute it. Let her say it. She started to say something about the soldiers and suckers and losers. They didn't do anything. They let her say whatever she wants. Not a single fact-check have they done. I think people who have, like I said, working and operating frontal lobes can see this. It's like, what do you mean? The man just said, I have nothing to do with Project 2025, but you keep saying it. The whole thing with the baby removal stuff. Hey, it's in the states. It's not my ban. It's with the states. Each state can now do it themselves. They didn't even check that. They understand what the Supreme Court said. She just kept saying it was him, his ban, he's going to do this. No, it's in the states. He talked about what's the guy's name? Ralph Northam did in Virginia. That's actually a news tape where they caught him saying, we'll just leave the baby on the table and see what happens. Fact. I knew going in that this was going to be bad. I'm just thinking at this point, it's bad enough where I think a lot of people sitting back, if they don't watch MSNBC and CNN or that kind of stuff, they can see, man, this is just a train wreck. She's just lying, and they're letting her lie. They don't even care. How could you possibly let this woman talk about Charlottesville, Project 2025, a national baby disposal ban, knowing all those things were just BS? But they did it. Bias AF. Yep, exactly. It's completely. Since when do moderators debate the candidates? When a candidate can't stand up and debate anything. She obviously memorized a few lines, and she's just going back to them over and over again. She didn't even have to defend the whole thing about going down to the border. Didn't even talk about it. Why? Why didn't she have to defend about the border right now? Why did they just let that go? Hey man, there's 10 or 12 million people here. But they asked Trump, well, how do you possibly get rid of them? At least he's going to try. And that would have been an answer. Hey, listen, I may not be able to get all 10 or 12, 15 million of them, but at least I'm going to try. What is she going to do? They don't even ask her. And notice how light this entire thing has been on the economy. Very, very light on the economy. You know, they started talking about drilling and oil. She had nothing to say. They just moved on to the next question very quickly. So like I said, will this give credence to the nuts? Of course. Twitter, CNN, MSNBC are going to say she did fantastic. The bottom line is people who are looking for answers didn't get any from her. She was the one who had to tell people what she was going to do. She hasn't told anybody anything. Everybody knows about the court cases. There's not probably a walking person on the planet that doesn't know that Trump was indicted 34 times, impeached twice, blah, 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 January 6th. We all know that. It's funny how she wants to move forward, but she keeps going back when it's in regards to Trump. because she can't talk about anything that people really care about. How are you going to make my groceries cheaper? How are you going to make my interest rates lower? How are you going to make gas prices lower? And these people, these two moderators, are staying away from it. So be prepared tomorrow. They're going to say she did fantastic. But then talk to your friends and ask them afterwards, did you learn anything about her? I mean, yeah, she attacked Trump. Did she say anything that she was going to do? And we're back. So let's see what they say.
War in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for $250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
They threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also, as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what she is.
Exactly.
I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings.
Central Park 5.
And he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times
Central Park 5.
calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling.
3 seconds, 3 minutes left.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has
we do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay,
that's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to respond because the former
Trump,
president has said something twice that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
You made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Okay, so we've got closing statements coming up. The fact checkers are going to be busy, because these guys, David Muir and Lindsay, the hosts from ABC, did nothing against her. She was allowed to say whatever she wanted. She could say Project 25. I've talked about it already. I am completely positive that the only people who would take this as a positive for her are the nuts. Because they were hoping that she would look somewhat presidential, but she didn't. I was waiting for what policy? What are you going to do against the border? Didn't hear anything. What are you going to do to lower gas prices? Didn't hear anything. What are you going to do to lower food prices? Didn't hear anything. How are you going to stop all these newcomers? Didn't hear anything. We basically sat through an hour and a half of the same old. Nothing was spoken about. It would be better, instead of having moderators, from a news station, open it up and let people ask the question. Let people submit the questions and say, what are you going to do about my gas prices? Answer a damn question. Excuse me. And then when you don't answer, we can hit a button and go, you didn't answer the question. I am so sick of these debates. You want to talk about dividing the American population? We are at such a situation where I knew it. I told you. I knew they were going to emphasize climate. I knew they were going to talk about baby removal. I knew they were going to talk about January 6th and let her spew about all that. And they wouldn't talk in depth about the real issues. These debates just are stupid. They should really be about 4 or 5 questions and let them have at it. So what are you going to do about gas prices? And just shut up. Let them go back and forth. What are you going to do about newcomers? We didn't get a single answer from her as to what she wants to do with all these newcomers. Nothing. She didn't even mention it. They didn't talk about it with her. Trump said, yeah, I'm going to try and deport them all. I think we need to stop it. Leave me a comment. Tell me I'm wrong. Did she say that she was going to do anything about the border? Anything. Tell me one thing she said about the border. But they'll say she did great. I don't care. I really don't care. She said nothing. She did exactly what I expected. Everything I told you she was going to say. It was so predictable, both from the moderators and her answers. And then, they just let it go that way. So it's obvious at this point, and I'll pick it up after the debate, but it's obvious that they don't want to do anything about the border. When she said about the guns, she's on tape saying, as recently as last week, when the guy went into the school and shot it up, she said, we got to take away these guns. She said it. And then today, she's like, oh, I never said it. Any fact checker from ABC want to talk about that? It's on tape. Oh, okay. Did they talk about these transformers? Did they talk about giving the transformers that were our newcomers and give money? Did they bring that up? Nope, didn't bring it up. So this was merely to feed her base. It didn't sway anybody on the right. And I'm wondering, what there is in the middle if people actually care about their life? Did they hear anything? And I don't think so. I don't think they heard anything. And I'm trying to be objective. And I'm like, you didn't talk about it. You're leaving this debate wondering what she would do about the border. She had every opportunity to talk about it. Nope, no solution whatsoever. That should be terrifying. People should bring that up over and over. Just, hey, what was your solution for the border? None. Nothing. You're going to keep sending money to Zelensky. Yep, that's what we have to do. Okay, you catch it on here? It's the same old shit. Democrats want to keep funding these forever wars and just see where it goes. Just keep spending money. Better buy some gold. I'm telling you. They're about to come back on right now. Actually, it's past 90 minutes, so here we go.
For closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
Well, if people hung around to the end at 10:45, which I think they did. I mean, I'm looking at the drop off on my video, and it dropped off maybe 10%. So 90% of the people still heard that close. That close said it all. It was perfect. It was great that he was the last one speaking. She couldn't interrupt. She couldn't say anything. That was the last thing people will take leaving this debate. You spoke for 90 minutes about blah, 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 blah. And the only question anybody should have for her is, okay, why aren't you doing it now? And I love how he closed with that, because people are going to walk away from that thinking, yeah, you're the vice president. You work hand in hand with Dementia Joe. Why aren't you doing it right now? You see, everybody likes to be the closer because that's the thing people remember. All the quirky stuff she said earlier and all the stuff that she said about January 6th, he brought it all home into one question. And tomorrow people are going to wake up and go, yeah, you are the vice president. Why aren't you doing it right flipping now? What is stopping you from closing the border? No answer. What is stopping you from drilling and making us energy independent? You could do it right now. Hey, Joe, we need to get this done. People need help. Nope, not doing it. So don't tell me what you're going to do in January when you can do it right now, or you could have done it for the last 3.5 years. You want a path forward? Well, you know what the easy change for you to do would be to tell Joe, hey, listen, we need to start changing things and do it a different way. But you're not. Why? Why do you want to do it in January? How can we believe you that you're going to do this in January when you won't do it now and haven't done it for 3.5 years? Perfect close. They could have made that entire debate right there. That last 2.5 minutes. Done. Don't tell me with, the violins playing all the great things you want to do for America. We care about people. And Trump just summed it up. If you ever watch Law and Order and you look at court summations, you got to bring it together. She was still talking about unicorns and fairies. He's like, do it. If I was president, I'd do it. Why aren't you doing it? And that's what people will have to remember. It was 90 minutes, maybe 100 minutes, went on a little bit longer than that. And people are going to forget all the funny stuff she said earlier, all the attacks that she made. The media is going to keep trying to play it up. But I'm telling you right now, people with a brain, with functioning frontal lobes are going to say, yeah, why aren't you doing it? That's all I need to know. That's all independents need to know. Answer that question. She can't answer it. In fact, Trump should have said that throughout the entire debate. Every time it got back to him, when they tossed it back to him, first thing I want to say is, I heard what she just said. I just want to know, why isn't she doing it now? And then go into his answer. Whoever prepped him should have had him ready for that. That would have been first and foremost in my mind every time I heard her say, when I'm president, I'm going to do this. And I would, as soon as they went, okay, Mr. Trump, all right, I only have one question. Why isn't she doing it now? Why is she not? I mean, he said it a couple of times. I hope people picked up on it. Why aren't you just going down to the office and talking to Dementia Joe and doing it? So the media can say all they want. It didn't change the race on the left, and it didn't change the race on the right. And I think the people in the middle, if they have working brains, are going to say, this didn't really do much. I'm not really into the infighting. I need to know about the issues. And if they sat back as adults and said, what are you doing about gas prices? Nothing. What are you going to do about grocery prices? Nothing. You notice capital gains really didn't come up. You notice that, right? They kind of avoided that whole subject. So obviously, since it didn't really come up much, there's no solution to it. What are you going to do about these newcomers? Nothing. So there's a whole lot of people who are going to walk away from this going, she didn't answer anything. And Trump has already told me, you may not like that he wants to deport anybody, but at least he's going to try. We got to get back to some degree of normalcy. Let's get all these people the hell out. Many of them will self-deport once they see people walking up and down the street, driving big old trucks, looking to pick people up. See, one of the things people don't realize when they say, how is Trump going to do this? Well, there has to be a database somewhere, because they're giving all these people EBT cards, and they're giving them this, and they're giving them that. How are these people getting those things? How are they getting the EBT card? It had to have been issued. Some of these people had to have been recorded as to where they live, where they're going, what town they're in. I don't think people realize there's a database somewhere where all these people, their last known residences. I don't know if they will say that Trump won. More than likely, they probably won't, because they can't. But that's what I'm saying. The closing statement he just made closed it out. That was it. D.D. Spark says, yes, I agree with you. It's running very slow up here. There was a eureka moment when Trump said, why don't we just step out of this meeting? Yeah, people won't remember that. And go to the White House and sit down and talk and tell Joe to go get this stuff done. Close the border. Do it. Do it. What are we talking here for? We don't need to be talking. You want to do some stuff to save the country? Go do it. Absolutely. The Project 20, all that stuff. Project 2025, Central Park 5, fine people. Just come on, man. That's all you got. That's. I know the left is salivating because they think, she stomped him, man. She got him. You go, girl. She didn't say anything for nearly 2 hours. Unbelievable. Shapiro, of all people, is lying about her performance. They have to. So here's what's going to happen. Let me just tell you what's going to happen now. I doubt there will be another debate unless it's on Fox. She's going to think she won. All of a sudden, in the next few days, you're going to see the polls change, showing her now she's rising, because all of this is pre-planned. They're going to make you see that, she actually came above this. She's going to get a bump. And if she doesn't, she's going to get the bump. But if she can't sustain that bump, I hope you know what's coming next. They're going to give her, right now it's September 10th, they'll give her till October 1st. They'll see how are the polls going to react. And she's going to go up over the next couple days, and then she's going to come right back down. That's when they make their big move. That's when, in my estimation, Joe resigns and she becomes president. And because that's the only card they have left in their deck. That is the single card that they have yet to play, and they've been holding it. So she needs to see the bounce tomorrow over the next couple days. Today is Tuesday. From now until Saturday, she needs to see the bounce. The problem with it, and here's a huge problem. This is college football time and NFL football time. So come Friday, maybe even Thursday, people ain't going to give a shit. They're right back to football and everything else. And then come next Monday, people have forgotten all about this. It's done. So she's going to have to see this bounce in the next 24 to 48 hours and then sustain that bounce through a football weekend into next week. And nothing better happen. There better not be any shenanigans with the terrorist attack tomorrow, because you remember tomorrow's September 11th. There can't be any, she has to have a perfect, nothing can happen negatively in this country over the next 30 days. It's got to be perfect. Can't have any more newcomers killing people. Can't have them raping people. Every time that happens, she's going to take a hit. The economy got to stay up, otherwise she's going to get in trouble. That last card, and I'm telling you right now, just mark it down. That last card is, oh shit, she tanked. Let's go ahead and make her president and get the bounce. That's what they're going to do. I guarantee you, I swear, I guarantee you. They will tell Joe, we need to do something here. It's October 15th. And, oh, hey, man, we need to get an October surprise. That October surprise is going to be her being elevated to president. And then for 2 weeks, you won't hear anything about the first black president, the first black woman president, the first woman president. She's this, she's that, she's the other thing. And there won't be any other news other than the fact that she got elevated to the presidency. And they're going to hope that brings her home. Guarantee you. Mark my words. So, that being said, let me go ahead and, this might be a long one here. I've got to, no, I don't have to. I love to talk to people about the donations that came in today. Like I said, Rebecca and Stacy won the trip. They're from Winchester, Tennessee. We're going to do another one and do some other things as well. But let me go ahead and get to this, because there's a whole bunch of you. Wow, so thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much. All right, let me bring this up on the screen so I can see. You guys are awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, here we go. Here we go. So, Angel Melendez, thank you. I've been talking to Dan. Mr. Martinez, thank you. Barry, do you think Timmy will be sitting next to her on stage? No. Del Hole, thank you. Sad that U.S. products on Amazon cost more than China junk on AliExpress. Yeah, wish they'd bring that up in the media. No, they won't. Deanne Pro, thank you, Barry, thank you. JC, thank you. Lucy O'Connor, thank you very, very much. Very much. Scott Davidson, if she comes out swinging, swing back, yes. And he did. He didn't lay down. Buster 5, thank you. Jennifer Nance, thank you very much. Kevin Foreman, thank you. Buster 5, thank you. Kathleen Smith, thank you very much. Barry, we have to win. It's a must. Yeah. Bernie said it. Only thing she's doing is saying whatever she needs to say just to get elected. That's exactly what she did. Ernest, Kamala's plan is to destroy America with communism. We are very close to being Venezuela. Fun TV with Jane, thank you. Beth Wright twice, thank you. Lisa Burke, she's not laughing now. That must have been one of the times Trump hit her hard. Kamala is so fake, it's like a bad soap opera. Thank you, Joel. If Kamala wins, I'm leaving the country. I might be with you. Shira, thank you. Martell Prayer, thank you. Well, she's not doing as bad as you guys brag she would do. Told you guys to stop taking your opponent for granted. You heard what I said at the beginning. I knew she was set. This was the entire setup. So it wasn't me saying she was going to get squashed. Lisa Burke has no idea what she's talking about. Ruby Langdon. Rick Moore, let's be real. Most baby removals are just a form of birth control. Women not wanting to take responsibility. That's so true. Alt Rock Lover, thank you. Wish he would point out her Supreme Court justice can't give a definition for the word woman. You can't protect what you can't define. Notice when she was talking about the Supreme Court justices, she was talking about the legal process. Well, Trump's handpicked judges. Yeah, that's how it works. What do you mean? The person in office gets to pick the Supreme Court judges to fill vacancies. Did he do something wrong? No. You know, like when Joe appointed, what's her name? Ketanji Brown, who doesn't know anything, and they confirmed her. She made it sound like he did something wrong. You know, Trump's handpicked judges. Hey, let me let you know something. Every single Supreme Court justice ever appointed was handpicked by the president who appointed them. You dolt. Crazy. Lock Kamala up. Gary Jason Lewis, thank you. Her voice is like nails on a chalkboard. Oh, it's horrible. It's like Jessica Tarlop on Fox. Ernest Walker, thank you. Thank you again, Ernest. Lisa Burke, she's so wrong. She hasn't put U.S. citizens first, and she won't. Understand, if she wins, all these people who think she's going to do great for Americans, nope, ain't going to happen. William Flanagan, is she talking? Beth Wright, I would never leave one of these rallies early. They're so much fun. Straight up lie. Straight up lie. Sometimes it's hot at these rallies, but unbelievable. Performance, cats for dump truck for Trump's puppies. Lucy O'Connor, thank you. Beth Wright again, thank you. So what is wrong with all of us MAGA Republicans? She seems to think she is such an amazing princess. They hate us. They hate us. You think it's bad. Wait till you see what they do with all the censorship. They didn't even talk about that. Things that people actually care about, censorship, didn't even bring it up. Not even a discussion. PK, thank you. Dylan, thank you. That fake smile of hers looks like, I wanted to slap her, didn't you? Chrissy, thank you. Anthony Andrea, she is FOS. Where is the fact checking? Nope, none. I don't think they fact checked her once. Not a single time. Lisa, she's such a liar. Not one word has been the truth. She's a liar. Nope. And they just let her get away with it. Don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why. I shouldn't say that. Kamala trained learning DJT policies to mirror them. We don't need an opportunist for president. We need Donald. Performance chip, human trafficking with Kamala and Biden. Christopher Kringle, thank you. DJ Mitchell, Americans went to where the people causing the issue. Yep. Kate Callahan, January 6th was not an insurrection. It was the reaction to one. Great comment. How are they talking, Preston says, how are they talking about January 6th, but not talking about all the Democrat writers? Didn't even bring it up. Nope. I think Trump brought up Minneapolis one time. Moderators didn't want to talk about it. The moderators, as Dolomite says, moderators haven't fact-checked her one time. The entire debate, not one time did they fact-check her. That's why I'm saying I think people with a brain who watch this, who may be independent, will see this was stupid. Thank you, Wheels. Madeline Mack, thank you for showing. Thank you very much. Julie Barwick, thank you. Larry. Larry says she's actually doing worse than we thought with all the lies and deceit, the taunting, the smirks. Well, see, this is where the press comes in. Now the press comes in and they've got to clean up on aisle 3. So they got to make sure everybody, they interpret what she said so they can tell people she won because she did this and did that. Well, she got him. Ernest Walker, thank you very, very much. Ernest Walker again, thank you. Johannes, she's a mother of layers. Terry, fight. Kingdom Man, thank you. Lucy O'Connor. Mr. Martinez, it's interesting that she's doing all the name calling. Yeah, I think Trump called her stupid maybe. But other than that, all the name calling was on her side of the panel. Sherry, Barry, thanks for your truths and facts on your show. You have created a beautiful community here. So glad I found you and this community. Thank you very much. I really feel that's what makes us different than a lot of the other YouTubers out there, is that we've taken with these moderators, now my daughter's involved as well, to really cultivate a community, a family of people who come all the time and are able to talk, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun, Black Yellow Flash, we knew this game was rigged. They were going to throw her as many bones as possible. And they did. Ernest, again, thank you. We were better off 4 years ago. Trump should have said that. Should have closed. The final close should have been, simple question, are you better off now or were you better off 4 years ago? Simple. Performance chips, still not one fact check for Kamala. You saw that. Ernest, again, thank you. Ernest, wow, man, thank you very much. And they left $80 billion of our equipment over there and got so many people killed. She had the opportunity to say, you know what, she's not going to say sorry, but she could say, we feel bad for what happened and these people, but didn't even mention them. Didn't care. Doesn't care. That's what people have to see. She doesn't care. NJ Sound, thanks. Ernest again. Obama divided us all. Kilobyte, I will be voting for a felon. Exactly. That's right. She brought that up over and over. NJ Sound, bullshit. Performance chip. Kamala's domestic terror. Bernadette, thank you. She has mastered the stink eye look. I love the fact that Trump wasn't even paying her any attention. Didn't even look at her. You're not worthy of me even looking at you. Joel, Sherian, what about her 44% capital gains tax? Nope, they didn't talk about that either. Thank you for streaming this. You're very welcome. Little shoe, excuse me, man. My insulin is $700 a month. I'd be able to afford gas to go get it. Wow. Lisa Burke, thanks. Ken Romolina, you know they're not going to fact check Kamala, and every newspaper and every news outlet is going to headline Trump 84 lies in debate. That's why it's up to people like me, other people like me, and for you to tell people all the BS that went on tonight. Roro, thank you. Little shoe, I do buy my own. Insurance doesn't cover it. Red Skeeter, thank you. Howdy Doody, thank you, Barry, thank you. Ernest, again, this just wasn't a debate, it was a Trump bashing. Yeah, it was. He knew that. Donald had to talk about her time as a prosecutor. Kamala believes in letting it slide. Leon, thank you. LC, Trump is a good, honest, strong leader. Trump is a reality. Kamala is really bad acid trip. Yeah. Thank you, Barry, for your channel. Thank you, Colado. Did I skip something there? Where was I? I skipped it. It jumped on me. So I got to go back up here. There it was, Colado. Thank you, MS Lorenex. White Wolf, Barry, they are not newcomers, they are. I can't say it. They won't let you say that here. Jameson Williams, thank you. Richard Baginski. Jason Robinson, thank you. Imperial Studios, you're the best, Barry Real News. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry if it takes long, but this is worth it. These people mean so much to me and allows me to give back. Donald Donovan, Barry, would love to send you a pic of how my house has been for the past 5 years and have you posted on a podcast. Do it. Do it. Send it. Excuse me, Kamala, I'm speaking. Love when he did that. Donna, they gave her a lot more time than him. She just went on and smirking and attacking him as much. They also interrupted him a lot, and they didn't interrupt her. She accused him of things he didn't do or say. But nobody's ever going to know that. I have 2 Chihuahuas who hate the law in person, too. Yeah, I wish I could show you him right now. He is back on his back like this, just laying down. He's Trump 24, save our country. Delho, love your content and you take on all this. Thank you. The only YouTuber I got the bell on. Thank you very, very much. Ardella, we love your work. We put a lot into these shows and we appreciate it. Thank you. Excuse me, I'm talking. Sound familiar? From Andrew. B.D. McAllister, hopefully people accept Kamala's invitation to go to a Trump rally. Sure. Yeah, she's never been. Giovanni Duarte says, Barry, please make a video addressing the lies. You want me to go back and pull this? I'm sure somebody will make a compilation. I'll see if I can grab it. But Belinda, thank you. Truly, I wish I could have sent more. Don't ever apologize for that. Thank you very much. Anthony, thank you. Will you keep this channel after the election? Yes. Well, all depends on what they do. You see, with me, I would, if he wins, of course, and if he loses, yeah, I plan on basically trashing her for the next 4 years if they allow it. James Williamson, where'd you go? Okay, why didn't she actually say what her resolution? Nope, they didn't even ask her. Didn't even ask her. She said, "Oh, Biden." I heard that. Thank you, Tracy. Delho, I'm still voting for him, even if he's in jail. The inauguration would be epic. Keep calling him a felon, and all they do is getting him more votes from the wrongly accused. You're right. Marty, thank you. And Donald Donovan, where do I send it to? Just send me an email, and that would be the best way to do it. I think there's an email in the description or in my profile. Now I'm looking for something because I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find it. Let me find it. I wanted to say thank you, and I didn't want this person to leave without me saying something. But I saw a $200 donation, and I can't find it now. I feel like crap. Hold on, let me see if I can refresh and then bring it back in. Because that was simply amazing. I can't find it. Wow, too many of them. Well, Ashley, or you guys know who did that $200 donation, please thank them for me. I can't see it. The other ones have come through too fast. All right, guys, well, that's all I have right now. I'm trying to scroll. I can't find that $200 donation, but whoever you are, I hope Ashley or one of the other people saw it and could say thank you. I'm going to say thank you even if I don't know your name. Ashley, you can text me if you guys know who it was, but it was extremely generous, and I thank you very, very much. Let me just check one more thing. I can't find it. Can't go back to it. Too many comments. Anyway, thank you very much, you guys, tonight. Like I said, don't watch tomorrow. Don't even tune in to what these idiots were saying. And buy some gold, get some silver. It wasn't just a commercial, it's a way of life. Get prepared. Things are going to get real squirrely here. Thanks for tuning in and sticking with me for 3 hours. Love you guys. Talk to you tomorrow.